Hello, hello. Welcome to today's episode. Yes. I have been sitting here on a Monday morning. What is the date today? August 17th, 2026. I'm sitting here with thoughts and I'm seeing patterns in a lot of stuff, including in my own life. And I'm seeing where even talking about them, thinking about them, has put me in a loop of overthinking and then my energy starts to go low because I start speaking my truth. I was talking with my friend and I did tell her in the midst of it, I said podcast incoming, but then I'm not treating our time together as a podcast. The way that I process things out loud sounds like I am teaching. And this is why I can see myself with a voice-led activation space where people come, they pay to be there, and I have a microphone. That's all I'm doing. It's all I can see myself doing, but taking what I'm learning, it's very, very similar to my podcast. And so today I'm looking at patterns that I have been tolerating in places of in my life where they have robbed me, they have exhausted me, they've taken my energy. Like I'm already healing from viral infections that I was told about in October of 2025. Okay, Epstein-Barr virus and mono. So you want to tack on anything that that zaps my energy. I can feel it, and then it's like the healing process. It's like, am I really giving myself time to heal? Or am I stuck in the pattern, in the loop of proving that I'm capable? You know, one of the things that uh, gets me a little bit miffed, if you will, is when I have hired mentors to help me get clarity. And, you know, the mentors have tried to get me to force me to go outside of my energy level. And it's like I'm not asking for tasks. I'm not asking for, you know, what I'm dealing with can't be fixed. There's no fixing. My body, I have to heal. So what I'm looking for is please, and I've been talking to God a lot too, please, can I please jump off this roller coaster ride? Please, can I not create anything? In fact, one of the prayers I've been praying recently is, God, please, I just want to be your kid. I just want to be a kid. You know, a kid, when they wake up, I watch, you know, I have kids. I watch my grandkids now. I get to see them grow up. They're carefree. They wake up, they're not worried about what to make for breakfast. They're not worried about going to a job that robs them of their peace. they're not they're not they're just not worried about stuff. They just get up and go. Why am I smelling smoke? Huh. They just get up. I'm smelling outside what smells like maybe there's a fire close by. But so kids, they don't have all the worries in the world. They're carefree until a certain age. I believe it's parents who can put a lot of weight onto children, causing them to get in a pattern and loops of things that they pick up, which is how we tend to take things into our adult lives. But today I'm sitting here thinking of the loop that I'm in and the pattern, and it's like, wait a moment, where did I lose myself? So I'm you know, I'm also dealing with, you know, I didn't sleep well last night, right? And so whenever I don't sleep well, I notice that my thought process goes like this. Exactly how I'm talking. It's a brainstorm process. And then I start thinking about a lot of things. Then I notice my energy level starts to go. And I realize it's I'm not purposefully doing it to myself, but I notice, Tiff, there's a pattern. There's a loop. But the pattern that we break today can be the peace that we experience tomorrow. The loop that we close today can be the tiebreaker on how we move forward tomorrow. You know, I've been healing from a lot of patterns in my life, and a lot of the patterns look like that the advice that I was given was go ahead, pimp yourself out, use your giftings, turn it into a business because you got to get paid for your pearls, right? Now, I'm in full agreement. There's a lot of, business owners that will do things for free, give all of their stuff away for free, and it's like, well, that's not a business. Yes, you can give some perks, whatever you want to do. It's your business, it's your life, but giving all you have away for free is not is not how to successfully build a business of any kind. Last I checked, many people aren't called to a ministry. I'm not, but that's what I was taught. Excuse any noise you're about to hear. I'm about to scoop some ice into my cup. I thought about the environment that I have been placing myself in since I was born. And some of those environments was foster care, but I did not place myself in the foster care environment. My parents' choices did. My birth parents decided that they wanted to do alcohol, and that was their livelihood. That was what they chose. And so, the consequences that they had were because of the choices that they made. Now, I don't know if they really fully took responsibility or accountability, but for my life, I was forced to stay in a loop of patterns, the same flow, the same cycle. And I wanted so desperately to break out of that. I wanted so desperately to not be in any environment that would rob me of my livelihood. I just didn't want to be in environments that would create patterns of not being safe, patterns of staying in burnout and exhaustion, patterns of not knowing who I was, patterns of having to scan a room in 0 to 60 seconds to keep myself alive and safe, patterns of playing, talking a good game so I could get what I wanted because people didn't know, if I was told of, foster kids don't get what you want. It's treated that way. In fact, I remember even different foster parents who lacked the skills of being foster parents, who probably should have been thrown in prison, to be honest. But their words, patterns, kept me in a cycle of shame and guilt. And it's like, why? Why can't you watch what you say? Why are you making me feel guilty for buying nice clothes that I wanted, that made me feel alive and good as a teenager? Why are you making me feel guilty for buying those with the money that you were allotted for me to buy things that I needed? New school clothes. So I was in a pattern cycle my whole life, a loop that I couldn't seemingly somehow get out of. And I've noticed that I can immediately spot patterns right away. I've run from it. I've rejected it because I'm like, nah, this is not what I do, God. This is not how I help people find themselves again, gain the confidence and the energy, especially uh, high capacity women in career. Nah, this is not what I do. No, I got to be doing something else, right? And then I look at what other people are doing, and then I see what they're doing, and I'm like, I don't want to be like them. But then that comparison loop, that comparison pattern. And so as I'm sitting here today, just really being aware of what's taking precedence, I realize that, you know what? I actually feel more bold and saucy. Is that a word? When I don't get a whole lot of great sleep because I feel like I don't know what it is, but I just have more courage because I'm not here to please people. I'm not here to get approval, but I am here to speak truth. I was even in a pattern of staying in the same church environments that spoke messages of things that kept me stuck and feeling like I had to prove and perform. And the same similar messaging I'm still hearing about forgiveness and about therapy and all this stuff. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. There is nothing wrong with having a therapist. And forgiveness doesn't mean that you're forgetting. Like, if that was the case, please explain to me how I'm able to share my foster care story. So you mean to tell me that just because I share my story, that means I'm not letting things go and that means I'm not forgiving? Excuse me? I've been told this even by people when I shared my story just a few months ago with a person that I haven't seen for a while from a church that I used to go to. And I remember I was sharing a part of my story that not one person in that church ever heard. And then I was immediately met with being counseled and, being told, to be careful and then they're using scripture to get me to think that there's something wrong with me because I'm sharing my story. And it's like, no, 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 no. You don't get to do that. And it's like, why can't we embrace the discomfort of ourselves when people share a story, but also that person, do you know the cost they've endured to be able to speak truth in a manner that doesn't mean that where they're not, it doesn't mean anybody's in unforgiveness. The pattern that we break today gets us out of the loop tomorrow. The loop that we get out of today breaks the pattern that we put ourselves in tomorrow. Every single thing we do adds up. I'm at a place in my life where I am noticing patterns left and right, and I keep talking to God, and I'm like, I don't want to see this stuff. I'm not responsible for what people here are choosing to do. And I'm seeing the same patterns take over, the same patterns take place, the same thing. And I'm like, why am I seeing this? What the heck? Like, and I'm like, is this something that I asked for? No. But I believe also God takes right, I'm going to say this. God takes the foolish things to confound the wise. It doesn't make sense. How does a chick who survived the foster care system, who's been noticing patterns her whole life, now all of a sudden starts recognizing things for what they are, able to speak truth in a bold manner, have a thriving podcast because she's not holding back with sharing things that other people are more than likely afraid to say, not or saying the thing that people have been wanting to say. Even doing this podcast in my mind, I'm thinking, who's going to listen to this? Because it sounds like you're rambling, it sounds like you're mumbling, but in reality, I've been giving you tips. I've been been telling you how to implement some things, and the pattern that perhaps we are in, we can't see until somebody turns a light on and shares things in a capacity that gets people to understand, like, excuse me, like, hey, you don't have to stay in that pattern anymore and keep yourself under a cycle of guilt and shame and trying to do the same things to continue proving and performing your worth. You don't have to do that. You don't have to stay in a cycle of proving yourself and staying in exhaustion, all to have a job that you're probably not getting money paid for, and maybe you have a college degree, right? There's that stuff that we're sold. Get a college degree because it's going to make your life a whole heck of a lot better. You're going to get paid well. And you're going to get all this stuff. And it's like, are you really? I know people that have gotten a college degree that are that are actually doing nothing with it. Or their pay is just a couple dollars higher, but they got the letters ... behind their name. Or, you know, but that's to each their own. But a college degree isn't really worth anything anymore. So why are we going to college? Is what we're going to college for what the marketplace is actually paying for? People got to look at that stuff. But the patterns that stay in families, that keep kids who don't want to go to college in a cycle of proving and pleasing their parents, that's a pattern. And maybe you're one of those folks who got caught up in that pattern. I did, until one day I broke it. And I said, I don't want to go to school anymore. Thought I wanted to be a nurse, and then I thought I needed a degree to speak up for abused and neglected children. Because in my college class that I was taking, I had to do a research project on abused children. That was very traumatizing. So now when people bring me certain stories, I have to look at them and tell them, I can't talk about that because that's traumatizing. And tell them I can't have that conversation because that's very traumatizing to me. So I gotta set boundaries. But the patterns that I break today gets me out of the loop tomorrow. The loop that I get out of today gets me out of the patterns tomorrow. The patterns that we are in create the loop, which is a cycle, which is that, what did I call it? The roller coaster. Getting off that roller coaster. And we get so caught up in all of the little nuances, how we look, what people are going to think, right? Or we are also in the pattern of not speaking up for fear, right? If we're in work environments where it's chaos. It's just very interesting. There are many people who are leading who are consistently keeping their people in patterns that are robbing them of joy and energy, their life. And people stay because that's what they're used to. Or there's a belief system that says that they have to stay because I've heard it. Well, where else am I going to get this pay? So then they start asking questions or they start making excuses to stay there. And it's like, yeah, you've lost yourself. I don't care how great the money is at a job. I don't care how great the insurance is, the benefits are, whatever. If there are patterns that are going on that are causing people to lose themselves, and the people who are leading are stuck in a loop and a pattern of creating the chaos, and they're not looking inwards and holding up a mirror, I don't care how great anything else is, no person is capable of leading under that fashion. It just can't happen. And it's unfortunate, though, that in many corporate environments, it is happening. And then the loop and the pattern where they get people to stay silent. And it's like, why are people staying silent? See, this is the part of myself where I was denied, declined, I was ignored, my voice was squelched when I would raise concerns about patterns from foster parents. And anyone who presented themselves as a leader, I would state the problem, state what's going on, state the pattern, and I was ignored. Do you want to know that in foster care, I was exploited for a paycheck? The more money they got from I'm doing research about the foster care system, and a lot of people, foster parents, foster companies, will get more money for a child who's what they called me pointed fingers. And one day I'll never forget, they sat me down and told me I was learning disabled. Oh, a whole conversation, probably for about 30 minutes or an hour, telling me I'm learning disabled and I'm going to need this and I'm going to need that and I'm barely going to graduate. Oh, yeah. So guess what that did? That put me in a pattern of shame and guilt and proving that I could graduate. I didn't have really a person in my life. Maybe I had one or two people in my life who was actually encouraging, that did not put the shame or the blame or the guilt on me for how I learned. But they also didn't realize that the learning experience that caused me to stay in a pattern of holding myself back was due to abuse, severe abuse, for not understanding a math problem. My almost adoptive dad lost his shit, got extremely angry, all because I, an 8-year-old, 9-year-old kid, couldn't understand the math problem because I couldn't hear past his anger and clenched teeth. Oh, he was getting angry, and I wasn't doing anything on purpose. I was terrified. Because when you have an adult standing over you or even sitting over you, and you're doing your best as a kid to try to get a fucking math problem, and all they're doing is getting more angry and not and angry for what? Over a math problem. And there was severe abuse that followed in that amount of time, because a lot of physical abuse that happened because I did not understand a math problem. But no one, not one person, pieced it together. And it's like, you can't beat a child into submission and expect them to want to learn, expect them to learn. Like, you want to talk about trauma. And what's also very interesting is that these same people, even though they apologized and I have forgiven them, they think it's excusing them and that they deserve grace. And it's like, halt. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that I am supposed to excuse you who was my abuser. God's grace is going to look a lot different for you. I'm not going to hold it over your head, but I'm also not going to stay silent anymore. I'm not going to stay in the pattern of silence just so you can walk around feeling good about yourself. For what? I don't need to remind you how much you suck. I don't need to do that. So I was in a learning pattern because I was taught that I better get it or else. I was in a pattern of believing that I was less than and stupid and dumb and incapable. So the patterns that we are in today can rob us of our energy, our time, our mindset. We get caught in the patterns of overthinking. We get caught in the patterns of being in relationships that rob us, that don't help us. It's many patterns in our life, but today, where are you in a pattern cycle, a pattern that's keeping you stuck, keeping you in beliefs, keeping you in, like, I'm gonna say some examples: friendships, jobs, church environments. How do you spend your money? How are your finances? The beliefs that you have, things you say about yourself, patterns, loops, pattern cycles. I believe the longer we stay in environments that teach us to submit to patterns that rob us, I believe parts of ourselves are diminished and broken off. Parts of ourselves get buried, parts of ourselves get lost, parts of ourselves don't function. We look great, we can talk a great game. The high performers, high achievers, the strong ones, they look great. But when you stop and you ask them, hey, what's good in your life? And all they can do is give you an answer of how they don't like to make a mistake, because if they make a mistake, they're going to get in trouble, and they make it all about work. That's a pattern. But where did they pick that pattern up? Now, I'm not here to fix people. I'm not here to be the person's therapist, but I can say, when you start recognizing where you're at in the pattern game, you will start taking the steps to break free from that pattern. And you will stop allowing things to keep you in a loop, constant loop, and a constant pattern. It is going to take some work. You can't do it by yourself. You just can't. It is a really great thing to have a really good therapist. And this is what I'm going to say. I recommend a good therapist that does not validate your stuff, your BS, that does not agree with you, a therapist that doesn't have you repeating and rehearsing the same thing over and over, a therapist that isn't just going to listen to all of your wins and sit there and tell you, good job, because it's like, wait, same stuff keeps coming up. So, about that. So, a good therapist that isn't going to use your stuff against you. They're not going to turn it against you and then cause more harm. There are really good therapists out there. But you can't do this by yourself. We weren't designed to do things by ourselves. We weren't designed to stay in patterns where we are feeling like we can't get out. We're not designed to do that. We're designed to break free. So if you ask yourself, what is one area today that I can be honest? Now, this is where you get to be honest. I can't tell you. I've been given a ton of examples today of what it looks like to be in patterns and loops. And where in your life have you lost yourself? Have you abandoned yourself? Where in your life are you seeing the same patterns pop up unaware? Patterns can look like the very words that we speak over ourselves. Also, when you get a revelation, it's not a golden ticket to keep staying in that. It is your duty, your responsibility, your choice to get out of that. You got to figure out how. I've given you tips and steps to do that too. Just become really honest with yourself. Give yourself massive grace, massive compassion, self-care. And I'm not talking about bubble baths and wine. I'm just asking you to look, even if you have to write it down. Where are the patterns in your life that are keeping you in a constant loop? This includes how you see yourself. This includes the company that you're keeping. This even includes what types of jobs you're getting, where you go, environments. And so that concludes today's episode. And I'm here to bust the pattern, break the pattern. The pattern that we break today will break the loop and the cycle tomorrow. And the loop and the cycle that we break today will break the pattern tomorrow. And it's really up to us on whether or not that happens. And so, thank you so much for listening, for choosing you. That concludes today's episode